Hello, everybody, and welcome to another video. In this video, we are going to build an income statement for our management information system. There's gonna be a lot of different techniques that we're going to use to make this happen. So I may break this down into perhaps two, maybe three videos. But where I'd like to start, as always, is the end result. In other words, we need to have an understanding of the functionality and the overall look of the module or report that we're creating before we begin building it, so that as we're working through it, we understand the process. So here's the typical, this is what it's going to look like when we're finished. We've got an income statement. We have the period that it's covering from and to. It's going to show our revenue, our cost of goods sold, our gross margin. It's going to have a list of all our various expenses and the amounts, our total expenses, of course, and then finally our net income at the bottom. Now, this report is actually going to be generated by another table. And what we're going to do is we're going to be creating a very simplistic table to build something called a report generator. It's going to just two fields on it, a from field and a to field, and then a button to actually generate the report. Now, the interesting thing with this is that you could use this one form and have a lot of different applications for it. Like, for example, I could have this say generate income statement. I could have another command under here to generate a payroll report, or I could have it generate a margin report, whatever I wanted. But for this application, we're going to leave it strictly as the income statements. I'm going to close this. So we set our dates. Let's say, for example, I just want to take a look at half a month. I could change this to, say, for example, from the 1st to the 14th of January, click generate. And now we will see the actual income statement be created for that particular date and showing all the revenues, costs, and associated expenses and profit that was obtained during that time frame. Now, if I want to take a look at the entire month, I can just change my end date to the 31st, regenerate the report. And now you can see there's a considerable difference. So this application really provides you with a lot of flexibility in terms of looking at your data and extrapolating information out of it. Okay. All right. So to begin with, before we start into this, I want to give you just sort of a quick overview of what's involved here. We are going to be building two very basic apps or queries, one to generate the revenue, cost of goods and gross margin, and then another to summarize our expenses. And then we're going to be doing something with reports we haven't done either. We're going to create a report based off our revenue and rename it as an income statement. And then we're going to take a report that we've built separately for our expenses, and we're going to merge that onto the same report. So you'll see how this will all come together. I'm sure you're going to have lots of fun. Okay, so let's go to our file. Now, once again, before you can begin building this, you have to make sure that you have all your revenues and your expenses in. And if you recall, for this project, you were required to put all your sales and all your expenses, book them to September of 2023. Any day in September is fine, so long as it's September 2023. And so you would have had to make sure that you've got all your invoices booked in. Again, there's the date, okay, of all my invoices. And then last class, we had built an accounts payable form, and we had keyed in some invoices and pardon me, some vouchers from bills that we received from suppliers. And those, of course, we also booked to September 2023. And now you can sort of see the reason behind this is so that when we create an income statement for September of 2023, we will be looking at all the revenues and all the expenses that occurred during that time frame to give us a full picture of what our profitability or net income is. Okay, guys, so to begin with, we need to make sure that we have a clean workbench here. We don't have any tabs open. And we're going to go visit our old friend Query Design. So we'll select Create, and we'll go to Query Design right here. And I don't need these guys open. I'm going to close those. Okay, and what we're going to need for our sales, we're going to need our invoice table. So I'm going to drag this over. We'll also need our invoice detail table. Pull that over. And we're going to need our item master table right here. And we'll pull this over. Okay. Well, why do we need all of these? Well, if we take a look at the fields, again, what we are creating is the top portion of our income statement. So we need revenue. So, our sales are going to be on here, our quantities and our retail price. We need our cost of goods, again, would be quantity times our wholesale price. Okay, and we need a description, right? Of what it was that we sold. Now, what's going to be a little bit different about this as well, if you recall from all the other apps or queries that we built, we always sort of started with the date first. We are not putting the date on this query yet, and we're going to go back later on and do that and make some modifications to it, and you'll see why later on. So the first thing that we want to have listed in our column here is product. So we can go to our invoice detail table, find product, double click it, and that's there. And then before we go any further, we're going to want to save this query. So I'm going to right click and choose save. I'm just going to save it as a revenue app. Now I'm going to name mine revenue app too, because I've been doing some things and showing some people some things, and I already had one named revenue app, and I don't want to have any conflicts, even though I've cleared it out. But revenue app is all we need, and we'll choose OK. All right, with that done now, I'm going to select the open column immediately to the right and go to my expression builder. As I've mentioned before, these guys under query type, make sure by default that select is highlighted and you accidentally haven't, triggered update or cross tab or something else. All right, so open up expression builder. And to calculate our total revenue, we're going to want our quantity, the sum of our quantity rather, times our retail price. That information is contained on both our invoice detail table and our item master table. So I'm going to start out first by just typing in sum, open parenthesis, and then go down to the column here under expression elements. I'm going to expand my file, expand my tables, look for my invoice detail table. Here it is. Click on that. And then I'm going to double click quantity. There it is. Times. And now I'm going to look for my item master table. It's down a little farther here. There it is. I'm going to click on item master table times retail. Double click on that and close parenthesis. So we have sum, open parenthesis, invoice detail table quantity times item master table retail, close parenthesis. And I'll choose OK. Now we are going to need our totals row down here. So I'm going to go up and click on totals. And as you can see, by default, the totals always come up as group by, which is fine for our product. Excuse me, but for our calculation we just did, we want to change this from group by to expression. There we go. Now I want to open up my property sheet and I want to make sure that this is formatted as currency. Okay, where are you? There you go. Currency, there we are. And then I'm just going to make a change to the title. And I'm going to call this revenue. Oops. Revenue, and then carefully delete the EXPR1 without deleting that colon there. All right, so I'm going to right click now and save. Now, before I go any further, I want to run the query to make sure that that formula that I put in there is in fact working correctly. So go up here and select run. And it looks like it's working perfectly. There we go. Yep. So there's my products and there's all the revenues added up for those products. Excellent. Save. And I'm going to go back to design view. So looking at what we're creating again, right? We are creating the top portion of our statement. So we can check off revenue because we've got that built. Now we need to create a formula for our cost of goods sold. So I'm going to click in the open column here, go to my builder, and our cost of goods sold is just the quantity that we sold times our cost, which would be our wholesale price. I'll put in some open parentheses. I'm going to expand my table, or pardon me, expand my file. Then I expand tables, and I'm going to find that invoice detail table again. And we need this because we need the quantity, right? The quantity that we sold times. And once again, I'm going to find the item master table. And when we did the revenue, we used retail. Here we want the cost of goods sold, so we want the wholesale price. And a closed parenthesis. So we've got some open parentheses, invoice detail table quantity times the item master wholesale price, close parentheses. Choose OK. We want to go down here. Once again, change the group by to expression. And then we'll change the heading carefully to cost of goods sold. And then once again, carefully delete the expression. So I'm going to make this a little bit wider so I can see it. I don't want to delete anything accidentally. The EXPR1 and leaving that colon there. And I can tell by my property sheet that I'm still formatted as currency, which is great. I'm going to right click and save, and let's run it again. Excellent. And there is our cost of goods sold. All right, so we just essentially have one more field to put in there for the top portion of our income statement. And we need the gross margin, which is essentially just our revenue minus our cost of goods sold. It's these gross margin dollars that are left over to pay all of our expenses. Okay, and then the difference of that will be whatever will be our profit. Okay, let us flip back to design view. Go to the next available column. I'm going to right click and save again. There we go. And go to the builder. And now the fields that we need for this are already contained in the app. So we don't have to go looking for it in the file now. So we're going to take revenue minus cost of goods sold. Choose OK. Once again, change it from group by to expression. Then change the heading to say gross margin. And then carefully delete the EXPR1. Okay, it's also formatted as currency, which is good. I'm going to right click and save, and then run the app. Excellent, everything has worked. And that's really all we need to create for this this first app or this first query for our income statement. We've got all total revenue, total cost of goods, and our total gross margin. Okay, so let's save it now and close it. Okay, and then the next thing we want to do is we need to build a query or an app to calculate all our expenses. And okay, we've taken care of this top portion. So now we're going to create an app that will calculate and summarize all the various expense items. Okay. And it's really only, we're going to go back to create query design once again. Close that. And we're on select. And we only really need two tables for this. And that'll be our accounts payable table that we created last week and our accounts payable detail table. So here's our accounts payable table. I'm going to drag this over here. And our accounts payable detail table. And we'll bring this guy over here. All right, make sure I'm displaying all my fields. There we are. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to need here is the description. Like what is the actual expense. So I'm going to double click on description. That will populate down here. Now, before going any further, I want to save this. So go to the tab, right click and save. And I'm just going to call this expense app. And I'm going to name mine expense app too, because I've already done this previously. There we go. And select OK. Now all we need to do, guys, is we just need to calculate the total, or the sum rather, of all the expenses. So I'm going to select the first available column on the right. I'm going to go to Builder, and I've got to go find what I need. So I'm going to expand my file here. And what I need are on tables. So I'm going to expand my tables. And all we need is the accounts payable detail table. I'll select that. There we go. Now, in my expression field, I'm going to type in sum, open parenthesis, and it will be my quantity of AP times my unit price, close parenthesis. Okay? So we have the sum, open parenthesis, accounts payable detail table quantity times the accounts payable detail table unit price. Going to select OK. Go to Format. Make sure I select currency. There we go. And now we've got to add the totals row down here. So I'm going to go to totals. There we go. And where we put this formula now, we have to change the default group by to expression. And then we're just going to change, I'm going to widen this a little bit. I'm going to carefully change the title now to say total, or actually, what total expenses is. No, I think I'm just going to have expenses or expense amount. Yeah, expense amount will work. And then carefully delete the EXER1. There we go. I'm going to right click and save, and then run the query. There we go. So I've got my list of my expenses that I created in my accounts payable module: freight and delivery, insurance, office, postage, pro fees, rent, repairs and maintenance, telephone and utilities, excuse me, and then the totals. Now, if you had accidentally keyed in a different total amount, say for insurance, yours said 1,400 instead of 2,400, that's okay. And once again, you don't have to perfectly match my numbers, but all I want to see is I want to see a list of those expense items and then the summary of the costs in there. And that's all we need to, that's it for the expense app for now. So we're going to right click and save it and close it. Okay, so now we are going to begin creating the income statement report itself. So I just want to go back and revisit this again to give you an idea of how we're going to do this. So we're first going to select our revenue app, and we're going to create a report. Only when we create the report, we're actually going to, instead of naming the report revenue app, we're going to actually name it income statement, because what we're going to end up doing once we finish doing the top portion of the report, we will be pulling over the expense report into it to create one solid report. Okay. All right, so to begin with, we want to make sure that we have everything closed, there's nothing open, and then scroll down, and we want to find our revenue app. I just want to highlight it. I don't want to open it, okay? Once we highlight it, we will go to Create, and we will choose Report Wizard. Now, for now, I want to have everything over. So I want to pull all these items over. Now it's going to look really busy when we start out, but fear not, we will we'll be making a lot of changes and formatting and stuff. Okay. So I'll select everything here. Now, guys, if you get something like this, where you get to this display and you have product or something else showing up at the top here. We don't want this. That will really mess up the configuration. So we will double click and we want to bring everything else down so that everything is just contained on the report itself. Okay, otherwise you're going to have a really sort of misconfigured report and you won't be able to do anything with it. Okay, I'll select next. And here, what we want to do is by ascending, we're going to choose product. Okay, we'll select product. Then choose next again. And we want to make sure that we are on tabular and portrait. Okay, choose next. And we're going to name this, as I mentioned, we're going to change the title of this to income statement. Okay, and finish. Okay, now you might be saying, hey, what's going on here? This looks nothing like this. And well, you would be right. Okay, so we're going to do some interesting things with this report that we haven't done yet. And I hope it gives you some ideas to some other things that, you know, if you wanted to be creative and do something, you'd be able to apply some of these processes. Okay, so I'm just going to save and close. And then I'm going to go down to my reports and I'm going to open up my income statement. There we go. Now, first thing I'm going to do is flip over to design view. Okay, I'm going to grab this report footer, this solid black bar, left click, I'm going to give myself some room here like so. Okay. Now, this is kind of an interesting technique. The first thing that we're going to want to do is remove sort of the date and the page number off the bottom of the report. So guys, below the page footer, I want you to be careful that you don't accidentally delete the wrong fields. Excuse me. Click on the page field here. Once it's highlighted, delete it. Then click on this field, highlight it, and delete it. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to summarize all of our revenue. Now to do that, under the bar here where it says detail, see we've got product and revenue. I would like you just to click once on the revenue field to highlight that. And then you should be on report design, go to totals and choose sum. Okay. And you'll see that it created a sum field just below the report footer. Now I'm just going to click on that and use my arrow key. Just kind of move it down a little bit. You do not have to be at this stage very particular where your fields are going to be because we're going to be doing a lot of, configuration and moving things around and lining things up properly. So at this stage, we just want to get our fields sort of in the approximate place where we want them, and then we'll fine tune it later. Now, what we have to do here, what you've just created here is this number, this field, okay? So what we've got to do is we've got to add a label to that, right? Called revenue. Otherwise, if you run this, you're just going to see a number and nobody's going to know what that is for. So to do that, from the report design under controls, we're going to choose the third option over here called label, not text box. If you recall, text box gives you two fields. It gives you a label and it gives you an unbound box. So we'll choose label, click on that. And then just somewhere, in the general area, just left of your sum field, you're just going to draw a rectangular box here, and we'll type in revenue. Okay. And just to save a bit of time, I'm going to highlight it, go to format. I might as well color my text in a, whoops, not fill color. And I want this one here, black text once. Click on that. And then I'll click on my totals here. And I'm going to choose the same color here. And my format is currency, so I'm happy about that. All right, I'm going to right click and save. And then I want to go to report view and scroll down just to make sure that it did in fact work. Down here, we go to report view. And it should be way down the bottom. There it is. So I've got my revenue. So my total revenue is 186,458.17. Again, yours could be a little, your number could be a little different depending on how many invoices you entered and so on. That's totally okay. All right, so that is finished. Now we'll do the same for the cost of goods, and then finally the gross margin. So go back here again, and we will flip this over to design view. I'm just going to click off of that field because I don't want it highlighted. And we're going to go up here under detail. Don't select the label, guys. You want to get down here. I'm going to click once just to highlight my cost of goods. I want to be on report design, totals, and sum. Okay. I'm going to click to highlight it, use my arrow keys, and now move this into position. Approximate position, as I mentioned earlier. We don't have to be exact at this stage. We will tidy everything up later on. Okay, so we've got that. And once again, we need a label for that. So go to labels, click somewhere just below revenue. Oops, that's okay. I'll expand that later. Cost of goods sold. Okay, and I'm going to want to color my text on my label from format. Okay, black text 1. And the same thing for my number of cost of goods sold. Make that the same color. And I'm in currency. Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to save it. And reopen in report view just to have a look. Okay, scroll down. Okay, perfect. There it is, except for some reason, the text color didn't show up on cost of goods sold label. So I will go back and fix that. Highlight it, format, for the arrow, and there you are. Okay, I'm going to click off here so nothing's highlighted. And then the last thing we want to add is the gross margin. So again, right here, I'm going to select that box. Just going to click on it once to highlight it. Make sure I go over here to report design and then over to totals and choose sum. Here it is. I'm going to highlight it and then use my arrow keys, move this guy down here. Excellent. Okay, and then put a label on it. Draw it under here somewhere. Okay, and this will be gross margin. Okay, and format my color. There you go. And over here, format my color. And I'm on currency. That's great. Okay, now I'm going to right click and save and take one more look here in, whoops, report view. And scroll down and see how we're looking here. Okay, that's good. Again, I'm a little out of alignment. That's totally okay. Right now, they're sort of in the approximate area and they're functioning, they're working correctly. Because my 186 minus my 141 gives me a gross margin of 44,658. Now, a couple of things I want to show you here. First thing I want to do is, now by default, when you create a report in Access, you get sort of this banded color, like white, gray, white, gray. I want to eliminate that just so we have complete white background, just like I'm showing you here. So what we're going to do is flip back to design view. Now, when you're in design view, you see here where it says detail. I'm going to get you just to click on that once, just to highlight the bar there under detail. Then go up to the top where it says format. And then under the background, you see here where it says alternate row color. Click on the arrow and go down to the bottom and choose no color. And then let's right click and save. and then right click, and let's take a look in report view. There, so the banded color is all gone now, and we're just left with this. So the next thing we're going to do now is we are going to get rid of all this information that's listed there, and then move everything up our sales, cost of goods, and gross margin up near the top. So we will go back to design view again. And what we're going to do, this might make you a little bit nervous, but it's totally going to be okay. I promise. Let's under page header, let's click on the product field and then hold down our control key, excuse me, and then click on revenue, cost of goods, and gross margin. Let's highlight all of those and just hit delete. Now below detail, let's click on product, press and hold down our control key, and select revenue, cost of goods, and gross margin, and delete. Okay, now we're just going to condense everything here. So under detail, move your mouse so that your cursor is just above the white line, left click and drag it right up nice and high. Go down to the page footer, do the same thing. Get your mouse just above that invisible white line, left click, drag it right up underneath. And then finally the report footer, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to get that invisible line, left click, and drag that up. And then we're going to flip over now to report view. Okay, now we're starting to look a lot closer to this. Okay, now I want to have a little bit of room there. So I'm going to flip over right now to layout view. Again, this is not a final setting. I just want to kind of get things approximate. So I'm going to click on revenue, hold down my control key, highlight these other fields, save myself a bit of time, and just use my down arrow key to move these down to give me a little bit of space here. Okay. Okay. Over here. Okay. That's good enough for now. I'm going to right click and save. I'm going to make us go back to design view and make us a couple of small adjustments to my title. Make it a little bit larger. And perhaps move it over here somewhere near the center. There we go. And I'm going to go to format. Going to color. My font. Bold it. And my background banner, I'll make that black as well. You can choose your own colors. Okay, I'm going to right click and save. And then right click and one more time, take a look at report view. Okay, so let me just make a couple of little adjustments here. And go back to report view. Okay, there we've over here for a second. Save, close, and then I want to open it back up and take a look, final look. There we go. Okay, so this is a great start to our income statement. And I've left a little extra space at the top here because later we will be adding some fields that will show and display the from and the to dates when we're actually running a report. Okay, so I'm going to end the video here, and this will be part one. When we come back, we will create the report for the expense app that we created. And then what we're going to do is we're carefully going to merge that expense report underneath this income, underneath the revenue portion. So we have a complete looking report and statement. And following that, we will be building our table, our to and from date to create our report generator and then linking it all together. Okay, so I hope you're able to follow along. If not, take your time, rewind the video, pause it, pay very close attention to detail, step by step, and I'm sure you have no problem at all getting to this stage. Okay, guys, take care, and we will see you on the subsequent video. Bye for now.